Star Trek Picard, Season 2, Episode 5, Fly Me to the Moon. Oh boy. I'm going to do this recap slightly differently this time because there's no point in doing the back and forth. This was actually a pretty simplistic episode.
Well, the one thing I'll say before we get going
is
the director was Jonathan Frakes for this episode. Obviously, that's Riker from the TNG era, and he's directed several Discovery and I think a couple of Picard episodes. And those tend to, at least visually, they tend to look more professional than their normal stuff. And this did show that. I mean, the scenes tended to move along, and it didn't seem like it was an hour like the past two episodes, which seemed each episode was like 2 hours. So to give credit, you could see where some talent was being placed in the directing with Jonathan Frakes. But he can only do so much.
Yeah. So, I will just start out with the saga of Raffi, Seven, and Rios. Raffi was all set to just have Rios beamed off of that transport bus for ice in front of everybody. Seven said no and used an EMP to stop the bus. On the bus, Rios punched out. Well, he got into a fight with the guard, and then one of his fellow detainees knocked the guy out.
You noticed this watching. Do you want to mention what you saw on one of the bus scenes?
Yeah, I mean, in one of the scenes where they're showing the bus driving down the highway, the writing on the bus is backward, so you can see that they definitely flipped that image, and they didn't bother to take the time to
fix it.
Yeah, to at least change the writing to go the other way, to mirror. It's a sloppy thing to do. I'm surprised that got through. You usually don't see that on professional shows like that. That's usually something you see on, like, cheap stuff.
Well, Discovery had the one, like, with Michael Burnham, when she was pointing the phaser at herself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it was Discovery still, there was some text on the screen that was misspelled. I forget what the thing was, but it was some word that was misspelled. And with this bus, it's clear they wanted the image to go a certain direction, so they flipped the bus, the footage, so the bus's text got flipped. But in this day and age of digital effects, and since this series is based around digital effects, adding some artificial text on there to cover up the text on the bus that was flipped.
It should have been trivial to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it should have been extremely trivial to do that, but they couldn't even be bothered to do that.
No. So that was hilarious. So Raffi and Seven board the bus. They use the same, I guess it's a tricorder or whatever the Confederation had that they brought with them to use something that looked similar to the EMP to knock out the driver. And they free everybody who is being detained by ICE on this bus. You know, it would be one thing if those were all innocent people, but we don't know that. There may have been some criminals on that bus that they just set loose.
They just said go.
So that was extremely irresponsible on their part. So that's the saga of Raffi, Seven, and Rios. Raffi thought she saw Elnor, so she's still having weird problems with that. They should have spent more time establishing these relationships if they were going to make it such a huge thing. But I am so tired of Hollywood just telling us that there's a relationship there and not showing that relationship form, or even having any chemistry at all between the characters. It's weird. They just tell you there's a relationship there and we're just supposed to accept it. No, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it was interesting on the bus, too, because on the bus, the ICE officer that was keeping an eye on the prisoners, when the bus was shutting down, again, it was a white male. I think it was the same white male that was dealing with Rios in the cage.
Yeah, it was that same guard.
He was giving these orders in English. So, you know, he was like, basically, sit down and shut up. And I'm like, I was sitting with Mollie, and I'm like, well, why isn't he speaking Spanish to these people? Because I would think one of the prerequisites to have that job would be to be able to speak Spanish.
Well, I know for Border Patrol, you have to speak either Spanish or French, or at least that's how it used to be. Mm-hmm. So I find it hard to believe that they allow an ICE guard to be there like that who couldn't speak Spanish. You know, when the detainees on the bus were speaking Spanish to each other, I think it's kind of important.
Yeah, they're like two of them talking. I think Rios was talking to somebody. we saw the subtitles and they were talking in Spanish.
What was it, Pedro? I think that was the other guy.
And it's like they were doing that so like the ICE officer wouldn't know what he was talking. It's like, but shouldn't that guy know how to speak Spanish? I mean, you shouldn't be able to just speak Spanish and be able to use it as some secret code so that the officer can't figure out what you're talking about. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Nope. That was Rafi 7, Rios, and ICE. So, we've got Tala and JL, because the Watcher, who looks exactly like Laris, but doesn't have Romulan ears, her name is Tala. Apparently, she is whatever Gary 7 was back on the original series.
Yeah, I think the episode is called Assignment Earth, which I could be wrong, but I think that was supposed to be back then. That was a pilot. They were hoping that was going to spin off into a series, but that never happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, she's confirming that she is of that same organization of trying to keep the timelines pure that Gary 7 was back in the TOS era.
Yeah, and she has been assigned to protect one person, and that is Renee Picard. And she is the person we saw Q trying to mess with at the end of the previous episode.
And that was Jean-Luc Picard's, like, grandmother or something?
No, it was his, like, great-great-great-great aunt or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, of course, she is some sort of prodigy. She is wearing one of those Europa patches. So you can see this is all tying together that way. Tala is spying on her, watching this pre-flight psychological examination. Jean-Luc Picard hears the voice of the therapist that is doing this pre-check on her. He gets all distressed and insists that the camera angle be changed to show the therapist's face. And of course it's Q, and he recognizes him, of course, like he should. So obviously they see that Q is trying to mess with Renee. As it turns out, there's going to be this gala that the astronauts are forced to go to before their mission. And so Renee is going to be there. Picard, Tala, Rafi, 7, Rios, and Agnes are all going to go to this gala to keep an eye on Renee to make sure that, I guess, Q doesn't do anything to her. However, what they don't know is that Q has been messing with somebody else's life, that being Adam Sung, played by Brent Spiner. Sung's daughter has some sort of rare genetic disorder. He's been trying to do research in order to find a way to save her life. And apparently the experiments he's been doing have been on former soldiers and extremely illegal. And he loses his license and is banned from doing any further research. And that's when Q gets in touch with him through a computer message that says, I can help, and to check his 3D printer. And of course, what's printed is some sort of card with a big Q, a stylistic Q in the middle, that if it had been on a show that didn't take itself too seriously, that actually could have been kind of a...
Funny. He gave him a calling card. I mean,
Yeah. It could have been a wink, wink, nod, nod kind of hilarious thing, but instead they were playing this super dramatic music, and it was supposed to be this very important and meaningful and distressing moment. It just came off as really stupid.
You pointed out to me when this whole thing was going down with Dr. Sung, and then Q sending him that message over the terminal, very similar to how in The Matrix, how they contacted Neo. But you mentioned to me, you said, the problem I have, although John Delancey is putting in a good performance, his character has got this sinister take to him. But you pointed out the way you used to interpret Q back in The Next Generation, you compared him to a couple of mythical characters.
Yeah, I mean, he used to be akin to, say, Puck or traditional Loki, the trickster. Q was never really this psychotic, malicious entity. He was really in it for a bit of fun. We saw this from him over and over and over again. He liked to mess with Picard. He liked to mess with Janeway. There was even a point where he was trying to mate with Janeway and then eventually dumped his son on Janeway. So he was the trickster. He wasn't this malevolent entity that he is now. That is really disappointing because I liked Q as he was. Somebody that you would want to have a good time with maybe once in a great, great while. Not somebody you'd be able to tolerate on a daily basis, that's for sure. But I mean, it would be fun once in a while to just go down that crazy path of his. But now it's not a fun, crazy path. It is a scary, crazy path. It's a psychopath, basically.
There's no amusing part of Q in this series.
No, he's just bad now.
He's just like this jerk.
Yeah.
Another thing that I guess we should mention is at the beginning of the episode, there was this like previously on segment. We didn't really catch this the first time. They were like showing this statue. They had a cityscape, and they had like this statue, and there was this voiceover of somebody saying something like, the galaxy will be a better place when it's human only, or something like that. And as that was happening, you mentioned that sounds like Brent Spiner.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling that dialogue, along with what we're seeing now, that Brent Spiner, like I predicted, is going to be this Trump character. He's going to do something in exchange for Q for something.
Well, yeah, because when we saw him in front of, I guess it was the medical board when they revoked his license, the things he was saying about genetic purity, basically,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it sounded like a eugenics spewing Nazi, and...
Which would fit in a little bit with the traditional Star Trek eugenics war type stuff.
Yes, it would.
So at least they're trying to tie that in there, but I think they're going to jam a Trump in there as well.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it, doesn't it? Because he's wearing this business suit and everything and just seemed very... It reminded me of, if anybody has seen Wonder Woman 1984, the businessman baddie that, oh goodness, the guy that plays the Mandalorian, what was his name?
Pedro Pascal?
Yeah, Pedro Pascal. It reminded me of the character Pedro Pascal played in Wonder Woman 1984, and it just seems like there are no original ideas in Hollywood right now, because that seems to be all we're getting. That seems to be the baddie every time. We even saw a vision of that, not from Hollywood, but from the BBC, in that Arachnid episode of Chibnall's Doctor Who.
Yeah, that was their version of the Trump stand-in.
Yeah, with Chris Noth, I believe is his name. So I'm tired of this. It's like, get over it already. Seriously? We've got bigger problems.
Yeah, sadly, it looks like they're going down that path.
Oh, yeah.
Just another mention here. Sung's daughter that he was trying to help, she had a likeness of Soji.
Yep, Soji.
So I think this is how they're trying to fix when people were asking, like, why wouldn't Data's daughter look like Lal or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
I think they're trying to tie, this is like their way of retrofitting.
Yep,
That,
Soji.
no, that image came actually before that. It was with this Sung back then in 2024 and his daughters. So I think it must have gotten to them that people were complaining about why Soji looks so different than, let's say, Lal.
Yep.
And I think this is how they're trying to fix that.
Yeah. So anyway, Sung meets up with Q, and Q gives him a vial. He tests the vial, of course, and then he gives it to his daughter, and she seems to be cured for about 5 minutes, and then it wears off, and she starts suffering the effects again of her genetic condition.
Her disease was kind of weird. I was making a joke because it looks like sunlight would like cause her to like burn, and water would do bad things. And I'm like, is she a vampire or something? I mean, I don't think that's what they were trying to portray, but it's like the sunlight thing. I'm like, okay, is she a vampire? And then, all right, maybe not water, but like, isn't it something like vampires can't cross running water? Wasn't there?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was just making a joke. I don't think that's all what they were trying to push, but I was just making the joke like, what? She's got vampirism or whatever that you would call that?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
It was just a weird disease that she had.
Yep. But anyways, while the medicine was working, she was in the swimming pool asking about her mother, and of course, Sung hesitates. So you can tell there's some sort of weird thing going on there. He gave her the vial to inject herself. So she injected herself with this medicine. When she's taking the needle out of her arm, you see blood dribbling and stuff. And it's just like, why?
Well, why would she inject herself?
Yeah.
He was right next to her. People should only inject themselves if there's no other option, because it's hard to get the right angle and everything.
Yep. Yeah. And it worked immediately.
Yeah. Like, you would think something like that would take days, if not a week or so, for it to actually have any sort of... Because this is supposed to be genetically changing her.
Yeah.
And this just happened in like 5 minutes. Not even 5 minutes, like a minute.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah, it was pretty immediate, and I'm like, oh, okay. So that seemed kind of stupid. And even back when Sung and Q were talking, it was weird to see Brent Spiner use the F-bomb.
Yep.
I mean, he was talking about how sick he was of cloning fucking cats for rich women. And it's...
Sentence enhancer.
Yes, that was his sentence enhancer. I'm just like, oh God. Again, this comes back to, I don't expect that kind of language in Star Trek. And obviously, I use that kind of language all the time. I can't help myself.
Well, granted, he was in 2024. So the argument could be made, well, if you use the language now in 2022, it's only 2 years from now. But it just didn't feel right having Dr. Soong use that.
It just comes back to, I think the people making this, they seem to think that today's audience requires things to be edgier, and that means using a lot of swears. And
we talked about that a couple of videos ago.
Yeah. So this is just more of the same of that. They just upped the ante a bit with the F word, which, Tilly used on Discovery a few seasons ago.
That's effing cool!
Yeah,
it is effing cool. I think Stamos responded back, yeah, that is effing cool.
And it just comes back to, at least Brent Spiner could deliver an F-bomb. Because when Tilly did it, and
it at least felt like it was a because I mentioned when we talked about these sentence enhancers before, it came across to me like they were dubbing in those words. That's how awkward it was to throw those in there.
Yep, exactly.
At least when Brent delivered his, it fit in with the rest of the sentence he was saying.
Yeah. So I will hand it to Brent Spiner. That guy, he can still act.
Yeah, he gave a good performance. He's always been good.
Yeah.
Because even before Data, I remember that character he was in Night Court.
Night Court, oh yeah.
And that's a completely different character than I've seen him with Data. And he plays that so well. I mean, Brent is a very good I'm going to call him a character actor.
Yes,
He's very good at that.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that he can still do that because his Dr. Soong is a little bit twisted and he's playing it pretty well.
Yeah, it's just a shame because I think that this season of Picard, I think there was a story there that they could have told that would have been good. And again, that's the tragedy of it because it's not good.
No. It's all disjointed and fragmented, sticking this ice stuff. This ice stuff, unless they're going to shock me at the very end, this had nothing to do with the timeline change or anything. They just added it because that's a social commentary on today. But it's a waste. Like, if somebody made like a abridged version of this for somebody to watch, you could skip all those past 2 episodes of all the ice stuff. It doesn't matter at all. It matters nothing at all with this plot.
Yeah, it was just social commentary they wanted to shoehorn in there. I think the thing that bothers me the most, though, is in writing, a good editor is almost as important as having a good idea in the first place.
An editor can make incoherent ideas seem coherent, and the other way around.
Yeah.
If you're competent and have a bad editor, you can make somebody who's extremely competent look incompetent.
Exactly.
So an editor, I agree with you, is super important.
Yeah, so they really needed somebody else to be looking over their scripts, their story arc, and paring it down to what was actually important and telling a tight, coherent story. Because this seems to be what a lot of these new Star Trek shows are suffering from. Just they lack proper editing.
Well, it's interesting because for the longest time, and again, I'm the old man, I'm used to having seasons that are like 20 episodes long, like when The Next Generation was here. And then when they started in the 2000s of making 10 episode, 12 episode seasons, people were telling the old man, well, that's good because there were so many filler episodes in those 20 episode jobbers. So now they just take it and now you just have what you need to tell a story.
No.
And now it's like, well, wait a minute. Now we've got these 10 episode seasons of Picard and Discovery. And they're adding filler in these 10 episodes. Because I have a feeling that whatever this arc is could have been told in like 4 episodes if you stripped out everything but the bare story. They're adding filler even in 10 episode seasons.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I'm tempted to go back to Star Trek Discovery, this most recent season 4, and just take all of the Tarka book portions out and string them together and see what kind of story you get, because I'm willing to bet it's about a zillion times better than what they did deliver.
Yeah, that was the only story last season in Discovery that I would argue made any sense and had actors that could actually make me wanting to watch them.
Yeah.
So the Tarka and Book show, if you just cut that out and made your own series, or it would probably be like a couple of episodes, that probably somebody could watch that and go, you know what? I mean, it wasn't fantastic, but that was, okay. But the rest of that Discovery season was with the Michael Burnham and that Species 13W.
10C.
It didn't matter. That all was just garbage.
Yeah. Meanwhile, on the Picard estate, Agnes is fast asleep on the couch, and the Borg Queen is in their ship having a good old time. She manages to call the cops.
Well, first she was weird. She was like imitating different voices of the crew.
Well, that's how she was trying to gain access.
Yeah, to try to get access
to the voice control system to call the cops.
Was it Rios' voice that she finally...
It was Rios' voice. And so she calls the cops. She pretends she's some woman who's getting attacked at the Picard estate. The cop comes out there. He finds the ship because their cloaking is shitty.
Well, when he was walking around, like they showed him in the chateau, and Agnes was just sleeping on the couch. This guy was walking around. I mean, he wasn't making a huge amount of noise, but he had a radio that was making noise, and he was walking around with a flashlight, and she was just sleeping on the couch and didn't even, notice that the guy was there.
It's because she's a useless twit.
Yeah.
So, anyway, he finds the ship. It was actually pretty entertaining when he saw the Borg Queen for the first time.
It was funny.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Well, how else are you going to react when you see some sort of fucked up head on some sort of half a person hanging up in the air like that?
But it was like asylum funny. It was funny,
great.
But it was funny in a cheesy way. It was like when you mentioned when the a couple episodes ago, or no, maybe it was last episode, when the Borg Queen fell over and Agnes did too.
Yeah.
That was funnier when her torso was hanging in the background. This was another one of those moments. So it was a cheesy, funny moment when the police officer first saw the Borg Queen.
Oh yeah. So then she sends out this fleshy tentacle that looks like some sort of horrible worm. And I don't recall the Borg Queen having a worm-like...
Like an organic thing.
It looked like some sort of hookworm, if people are familiar with that kind of thing. But it looked like some sort of nasty parasitic infection worm.
What it looked like to me, and again, I've been sticking with Babylon 5 in my head.
Yes, it looked like Londo's when
tentacle. Londo had that poker game he was playing, and then he had those extra tentacles, which if you follow the episode, you find out that that's actually part of his genitalia. They've got 6 or 7 of them.
Some sort of sex
organ. So he was
organ,
cheating with poker, using one of those to grab off the top of the deck and feed himself cards. That's what that looked like to me. That's why I was laughing when she did that, because it reminded me of that Londo scene.
And also, I mean, she's hanging there and she's all hooked into the ship and she's got this fleshy, organic tentacle. And it got me thinking, yeah, she's fleshy. So how is this flesh getting nutrients, and how is waste being transported away from her organic cells?
I mean, she had those cables hooked up, but I guess we're supposed to assume one of those is a feeding tube and one of those is a waste tube, but it's hooked up to the ship. So where's that stuff going, and where's the stuff coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand an argument being made that perhaps the electricity, that she's somehow converting stuff inside her body, but there's no way that I mean, maybe she is some sort of perfect creature and she's figured out some sort of way to be 100% efficient with her usage of energy. I don't know.
So but she has no waste product?
Yeah, so there is no waste. I mean, I was looking at that what the hell? How does she go to the bathroom? So it was just funny. So, anyway... Agnes finally wakes up and goes in and sees that the Borg Queen has this French cop all tied up in her fleshy whatever it is.
Tentacles.
Yeah, and so she brought a shotgun with her from the chateau, and she totally shoots the Borg Queen and appears to have killed her.
Did she shoot her in the head?
Yeah, she shot her in the head. That's when Rios, Seven, and Rafi beam back, and she explains to them what happened. She's trying to save this cop's life. All 4 of them are trying to drag this cop back out to his cop car, and that's when Picard shows up with Tala, and she's concerned that they've just, killed this cop. I mean, and again, they could have played it to be a funny moment. If they had filmed this whole series like an asylum film, it could have worked.
It was a little funny because when Picard was meeting with her earlier, And she was very reluctant to work with him because she had a mission and dealing with some sort of people from the future helping her. It's like she'd be counting on people to do her job and helping her that she necessarily couldn't. So she was a little bit, Picard had to do a little bit of his diplomatic talking to get her to agree that that's the right way to go, is to work together.
Yep.
So when they showed up and they were dragging that police officer out and she looked down at that, the joke was, what did I just get into here? We just had a conversation where I wasn't sure I wanted to trust you people. There was a little comedy there. I mean, it wasn't enough for me to go ha ha, because I think they could have done that humor better. Yeah. But there was a little comedy there.
Yeah, so they have some sort of Ocean's whatever kind of thing again, where they have to all go to this gala to protect Renee, and of course Agnes is the only one who has the computer hacking skills. Wonder if she has any nunchuck skills.
Well, they had to. They were going to attend this gala, but they had these sophisticated face recognition cameras at this
Oh, don't
mansion.
forget the RF stuff as well, the RF invitations that would scan everybody.
So what they had to do is they had to get somebody in there to add their identities to their database so that when they go through these security features, it would show up. And their security was taken off the network. It was a self-contained thing, so that's why they couldn't hack in from outside.
Yeah.
And so Agnes, I guess they decided her skill set, although I would argue Seven's skill set would have fit better with that, but I guess Agnes was the one they decided had the skill set to try to go locally and I guess inject those fake identities into their database.
Yeah, so she gets arrested on purpose or detained or whatever. So that she could get inside where the system was and hack it. And while she's sitting there, handcuffed to the chair, you see that she's having this flashback to what happened with the Borg Queen as the Borg Queen was dying. You saw that the Borg Queen had done the traditional injecting into Agnes's neck. Agnes is now sitting there with the Borg Queen in her head, and you see the Borg Queen sitting her next to her. Which is obviously just happening in Agnes's head, because nobody else sees her. So Agnes and the Borg Queen are now one, apparently.
Agnes was wearing this red dress, this tight red dress with the red lipstick. I said when that happened, because she has blonde hair too, this was Battlestar Galactica. They ripped off or paid homage, however you want to look at this, that they flipped it around so that Agnes was 6, she looked like 6, and the Borg Queen was the thing that was only inside her head. This was very clearly a homage or a ripoff of Battlestar Galactica.
Yep.
I'm kind of wanting to, I laughed when I saw that when in the red dress, because I said, she kind of looks like, and the scene went on, and then when the Borg Queen appeared in her head, I'm like, oh my gosh, this actually is that. It's they're paying homage or ripping off Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, except she's Baltar this time, and the Borg Queen is 6.
I'm trying to remember. I think Baltar was an expert in cybernetics, too.
Yeah.
You either think this is a brilliant homage, or they're ripping off yet another series, but you guys read into it however you want.
Yeah, so that, again, I mean, if they just played up the cheese in this, it could have been phenomenal.
It worked at the beginning when it was cheesy.
Yep.
It was working for me as a funny fan film asylum thing. I mean, I was actually recommending it on this channel.
But I'm also the type of person who loves things like Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, that's my favorite of all of the Marvel films. If they had just used that kind of formula, the James Gunn formula of how to write, this could have worked really well.
Well, they've been trying so hard ever since the Orville punched Discovery in the nose.
Yeah.
CBS has been trying, Secret Hideout's been trying ever since to make something organically funny. And they tried with Discovery in, season 2 to add like that alien guy making those jokes and some other stuff that just never worked, that always fell flat. In Picard, they actually, this season started out, maybe it was accidental, but they actually had some like of those genuine funny things. They actually pulled off stuff that was funny.
Yeah.
And I think that was accidental. I don't think they know it was funny.
No.
That's why they're not doing it very much, because they didn't know it was funny. It's like, no, that's the best part of season 2. Why don't you guys go with that?
Yeah.
Because last season when they had Picard doing that bad French when he was going to that casino or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They were trying to make that funny and it was cringe.
Mm-hmm.
But here, stuff was funny that I just don't think they knew it was funny. It was like, it was accidentally funny, I think, is what they were doing.
Yeah. So it's a shame they didn't do more of that.
Yeah.
I think my least favorite part of this whole episode was an exchange between Q and Dr. Sung. Q said the only way to truly be free is to love nothing. That pretty much summed up everything they've done to this Q character. That is to destroy him. I am not happy with what they've done to Q. This is really not good.
It's a character assassination.
Yeah.
Just like in season 1 when they assassinated Picard's character.
Yeah.
This is assassinating the Q character.
Which is a shame because I'm a Q fan, or at least I used to be. And the last time I saw a decent Q was on My Little Pony when John Delancey was the voice of Discord. Again, a trickster, a puck. That's what Q is, or at least that's what he was. So,
well, I think that's why, if I'm remembering right, that's why he kept getting in trouble with the Continuum, because he was doing stuff just to amuse himself. And that's why he kept getting in trouble with the Continuum. So that's why the audience kind of enjoyed that character, because even for a Q race, he was kind of acting way outside what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So he's not... Q isn't Q anymore.
No, that character's done now. And what really bothers me is they had, separately from this episode, they've released a teaser trailer for season 3. And they're listing the names of pretty much the standard big stars that were in TNG. Marina Sirtis, Jonathan Frakes, who played LaForge?
The Reading Rainbow guy.
Yeah, the Reading... LeVar Burton.
Yes.
Bam! LeVar Burton.
See, there you go.
So, and Michael Dorn, they were playing, they had credits of all those people. They've already character assassinated Q in Picard. They already assassinated Picard in Picard.
Yeah.
I can only assume they're going to character assassinate every single one of those Next Generation characters in season 3.
Yep.
So we have that to look forward to.
Yeah, look forward to. Yeah.
I would argue this episode was... I would argue it was slightly better than last week's, only because the ice stuff wasn't at the center of it anymore. But this just seems like all stealing from other stuff and imagery from other properties that were better done.
Yeah.
Because like I said, you have the Matrix when Q contacted Soong. You have the Battlestar Galactica stuff. It's just borrowing stuff. I mean, Jonathan Frakes put a slick bow on it, so the cinematography was actually pretty decent, although dark. We've both noticed when we take screenshots for our videos, you have to play, because Mollie's the one that puts these videos together. She has to play a lot with the color correction on these images to make them viewable because they're so dark.
Yeah. Like in last week's video that I did, the screenshot of Chateau Picard is, I had to brighten that so much and do so many things to it that it looks kind of messed up, but it's better than the black blob that it looked like initially.
Yeah.
Like, pretty soon we're going to be back to just having radio programs because it's going to be nothing but a black screen. It's ridiculous. I don't understand why I have this fancy high definition television if all they're going to give me is practically black, maybe some teal and orange, and that's about it. I'm sick of this shit. I want to see my goddamn bright colors. I want to see all the colors my TV can give me. That's what I fucking bought it for.
In Picard, they're doing a bit of teal and orange, but it seems like the daylight scenes, everything's yellow. It just was like a yellow, I don't know if they're trying to make it look like old-time movie but there's like a yellow tint to the daylight footage.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's supposed to represent how polluted the atmosphere is, or to try to look like it's always overcast.
I think it's a shade of orange.
Is it orange? Okay.
I think so, because even if you look at Seven, she's wearing that copper eyeshadow that I pointed out that everybody was wearing in Discovery. They are going so overboard with this teal and orange crap. I'm so tired of it.
That was in style like 10 years ago, the teal and orange.
10. I'd go back maybe 15 years at this point, buddy.
It's like they're not even cutting any new ground. They're using trends that were popular 5, 10, 15 years ago. So I don't know why anybody would watch this and say, hey, we're getting cutting edge cinematography or cutting edge this. Or, everything they're doing is from a previous era. These people are stuck in the past. They're not cutting edge doing anything.
No, and there are only so many times you can recycle something before it just turns to shit. And we're seeing right now that we've gotten to the shit point.
Yep. I will give a credit that Jonathan Frakes, he put a nice bow, cinematography-wise, on this episode, other than the color correction was still kind of dark and yellow. It at least kept my interest visually for most of the episode. Mm-hmm. That's more than I could say about the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So that's the only credit I'm going to give it, but at least I'm giving the guy credit. All the episodes he's done, even Discovery, they're at least visually interesting and they flow well.
Well, it goes to show how important it is to have a good director.
Yeah, but he doesn't write them, so you still got the garbage, but at least he puts a slick bow on it.
Yeah.
So I personally can't recommend any part of this episode. Even the funny moments were spread out.
Mm-hmm. It's not worth having that memory of Q
destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Picard. Because since Picard's first season aired, I tried to watch The Next Generation because every so often I like to visit the early seasons of TNG. It's hard. It's hard knowing what happens to the Picard character to watch The Next Generation again.
Yep.
And if they do to Q, if they do to the rest of the crew like they did to Q this season, after season 3, they're going to completely destroy TNG. So it's going to be difficult to go back and watch TNG ever.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know it's a conspiracy theory, but it makes me wonder if that's the point, is to destroy the legacy of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Because they are trying really hard to just rip it apart. Strange New Worlds looks like it's going to destroy what's left of TOS. They've cast a new Captain Kirk, and I think they're going to ruin Captain Kirk. Mm-hmm. And I hope anybody who hears this realizes that right up there with Picard, you don't screw with Captain Kirk. You don't mess up that character. That is the center of the franchise.
Yeah.
And when they get done doing that, what's left of Star Trek? You screwed up Picard, and if you screw up Kirk, we already screwed up Spock in Discovery. Like, there's nothing left. There's absolutely nothing left of Star Trek after they get done with it.
And I'm so sick and tired of hearing, well, this is just Star Trek for a new generation. Or anything for New Generation. You know what? New Generation, go get your own shit.
Yeah, make up your own characters. Don't keep going back and wrecking legacy characters. You want your own Star Trek, do Discovery, but don't do it in a timeline that's going to screw up old characters. If season 1 of Discovery would have been where they are now in the future, and no member berries, you're just doing your own crap, then you people sink. But at least you'll have your own show for your own generation. It'll just be, if that's a reflection of your generation must be crap, because the product you're putting out is crap. Yep. All you can rely on is member berries and going back and destroying, belittling. What they've decided is, instead of elevating their material above the old Star Trek, their talent level won't do that. But what they can do is smash the history of the old stuff so that their crappy stuff, as low as it is still above what they did to the Star Trek universe, because they're destroying it so that it's at the ground level.
Well, again, this comes back to, you shouldn't have to beat down one group to elevate another.
Correct.
I will repeat that. You shouldn't have to beat down one group in order to elevate another. If you can't elevate on your own without destroying something else, then you don't deserve to be elevated.
Yep.
And that's all I have to say about that.
This episode was bad, but not bad in a way where you can sit with your friends and laugh at it. It was slickly put together. Go ahead and watch it if you want, but I just don't see the point. There's nothing here to cringe about. There's nothing here to laugh about. I mean, there were some funny moments, and as you pointed out, they're destroying the Q character, but there's no one moment where one can say, oh, you've got to catch that scene. This is the sheer effing hubris scene you got to see on YouTube 100 times. Nah, there's nothing here. It's just garbage.
Yep. So we would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you saw any other member berries that we missed, because it seems like they have no original ideas on this show.
Ooh.
So like, subscribe, and comment. And now we need to do 2 more episodes in order to get all caught up. Or is it 1?
I think it's 2, because we were one behind by 1. And then Thursday, a new episode aired.
Oh, shit.
So we've got 2 to go. And we've got some personal issues going on with we moved and we're having some issues getting our stuff set up at our new place. So we're still having to juggle, but I think this week we're going to try by next weekend to get all caught up, because I know we got a new episode Thursday. So we're going to try before Thursday to get caught up so that on Thursday we can be in line with the rest of the episodes. But I can't promise that. We'll see. We'll try. That's the best I can say.
Well, we got work to do.
We do have work to do.
I guess we better get to it.
So until then, take care.